Good morning, and thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Laura Telmis, and I am the Executive Director and co-founder of Beyond Differences, the honored nonprofit organization that is partnering with the Surgeon General's office for today's event. We are so excited that you are here for this live stream event with our 19th and 21st Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy. And happy National Know Your Classmates Day. We are the creators of Know Your Classmates Day, which is actually being celebrated today on Friday, October 15th, all across the country by nearly 1,000 schools. And we are also the creators of No One Eats Alone Day and Be Kind Online Day. Both of these social emotional learning curricula, especially written for middle school grades, will be available to you at no cost all throughout the school year. We'll share with you at the end of this program how you can sign up. But today, let us celebrate the fact that we are hundreds of us here joined together, principals, teachers, students, and parents. What an incredible turnout. And this event is about connection and well-being, an especially important topic now that we have all experienced the emotions of isolation during the pandemic. Most of us have been working and going to school virtually, separated from some of our best friends and unable to make new ones. We know it's been hard, but we also know that there are some amazing and wonderful ideas on which Beyond Differences and the Surgeon General himself focus on the positive ways of connecting with one another, even virtually. And that includes really taking the time to learn about one another, about our individual cultures, our religions, our identities, the proud stuff that makes us each who we are. And we can and must do that always, no matter how we are able to spend time together. And that's exactly why we developed Know Your Classmates. And I bet that's why you're here today, to listen to Dr. Murthy's message of positivity and leadership. We need each other. We care about each other, and the Surgeon General cares about you. In fact, Dr. Murthy and the U.S. Surgeon General's office has contributed to this year's Know Your Classmates curriculum. Again, signing up is easy and free, and there's no better day to start using our curriculum than today. I first met Dr. Murthy when he was a private citizen, writing a book about connection and belonging. And while interviewing me about the founding of Beyond Differences and the life of my daughter, Lily Rachel Smith, in whose memory we founded the organization, and what she had experienced as social isolation in middle school, I could tell he cared. I could tell he was different. I could tell he was imagining a world in which all students feel valued, accepted, included, and respected by their classmates, no matter what their difference is. And that's what Beyond Differences cares about too. It is now my pleasure to move us along to the main part of our program, where you will meet Dr. Murthy, a few of Beyond Differences' magnificent high school national teen board members, and hear questions from you, our audience of middle school students and all others. Dr. Murthy, you are America's doctor. And as the Surgeon General, you have been tackling our country's most pressing health problems, including COVID and mental health issues, such as social isolation, and what we can do to overcome it. Thank you for your service. We are deeply grateful. It is now my honor to turn the spotlight over to you, the Surgeon General of the United States.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for that incredibly kind introduction. And, I have been a huge fan of yours for a long time and have just admired the incredible work you've done in setting up Beyond Differences. I do want to tell everyone also here just how excited I am to be with everyone today. I wish we could all be in person, but I know that the times we live in sometimes call for something different. But I'm glad we're here virtually. I'm actually speaking to you from Alice Steele Middle School in Washington, D.C., where I just had a wonderful session for Know Your Classmates Day with a group of middle school students. And it was just really rich, and I learned a lot. So I'm excited for this conversation, too. A couple of things that I just wanted to share with you as well. On a personal note, I may serve as Surgeon General now, but it doesn't feel like that long ago when I was in middle school, where many of you are sitting in high school and in grade school, really going through what was quite a challenging time as a really shy person, as a shy child, I had a tough time making friends, and I often felt isolated and lonely. It wasn't that I didn't want to hang out with people. It wasn't that I was super introverted. It was more that I just was not confident about myself, and I was just shy. And sometimes people took that to mean that I was antisocial or I didn't want to hang out with others. But what really helped me was, when I was in fourth grade, there was one student named Darren Daniluk. I will always remember him, who reached out and actually asked me if I wanted to have lunch together in the cafeteria. And I'll say that, lunchtime was often one of the scariest times of the day for me, because you walk into that big cafeteria and you just don't know who you're going to sit next to. And I was worried about being alone. But Darren offered me the seat next to him. And we sat together and we became really, really good friends, and we're in touch until this day, in fact. And so I will never remember just how powerful it is when someone reaches out to you. And it also reminds me that in this moment, when so many people have had their lives turned upside down by the pandemic, when many of you were not able to go to school for so many months during the pandemic, and as you're readjusting to life now in school, it reminds me that we're all going through something. We may not always know what each other's going through. It may not be obvious by the expression on our face or the way we say things, but being especially careful in this moment to reach out to others, to be kind, to remember that we're better off when we support one another. These are the lessons I think that COVID has made all the more important, lessons that were important before, but that are all the more urgent for us to bring to our day-to-day life. A couple other thoughts I just wanted to share with you is that I think that the current generation of students, I think, has gone through something that prior generations never had to go through, figuring out how to learn virtually all of a sudden, on a dime, when the pandemic shut down schools, figuring out all of a sudden now how to get back to being in school and how to navigate this world we're in, where we're still trying to get through a pandemic. This is a very unique and unusual experience, and it can be a stressful experience as well. And if you felt at times that you were confused or bewildered or angry or sad because of everything that's happened the last 18 months, I first and foremost want you to know that you're not alone, and that it's okay to feel that way from time to time, because all of us have been going through a lot. We may have experienced different things in different ways. Our backgrounds may be different, our communities may be different, but we've all gone through something during this really difficult pandemic. And so cut yourself some slack, know that you're not alone. And also remember that the way we're going to get through this is by looking out for each other and supporting one another. Lastly, on this day in particular, I just want to reflect on the fact that reflection itself, time to just stop and then take a moment to breathe and to think about what we've been through and what may come in the future, that kind of time is not very common, right? Like, we tend to race from one thing to another so fast that sometimes we can just wonder where the days went, and we don't have time to really think about what's actually going on in our lives. And that's why, before we begin our discussion today with three students I'm excited to introduce you to, I wanted to just start by taking a moment to pause together. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, just to get comfortable in your chair, wherever you are, to shake your shoulders, need to turn and bend your neck, need to adjust in your seat. Go ahead and do what you need to do. Get comfortable. And then take a deep breath. And then close your eyes for a moment. I want you just to reflect for a moment on what you've been through over these last 18 months of this pandemic. What's been hard? What's been unexpectedly good? Maybe a silver lining you didn't expect, but something that you're grateful for, that you may have experienced over the last year. And as you think about the future, what do you want for yourself, for your family, for your friends? Take another deep breath and open your eyes. And feel free to put anything that you thought about in the chat. You can share it with others too. But all of us have things that have happened over the last year that have worried us. many of us, if we look closely enough, may find something that we learned about ourselves, something that we're grateful for. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a new circumstance. And as we think about the future, about what's to come, even though we're going through this difficult pandemic, we have the ability to shape some of that future by choosing what we focus on and by choosing who we are, how we show up for our family and for our friends and at school. So as we keep that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to some wonderful teens that we have with us from Beyond Differences today. And they're going to share some of their pandemic experiences and their reflections. They'll talk about some of the challenges that they've been through over the last 18 months. They'll talk about some of the silver linings that they found during a really tough year. And they'll talk about what the future holds for them and what they hope to be able to bring to their lives and the lives of their family and friends. So I want to first of all, just bring them into this conversation. Their names are Juan, Maliyah, Matteo. You'll get to know them a bit during this conversation. And first, let's just do a quick go around. And Juan, Maliyah, Matteo, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. Tell everyone, your full name and what grade you're in, and anything else that you'd like to share, including why you joined Beyond Differences. So, Juan, why don't we start with you?
All right, so hello, everyone. I'm Juan Flores. I am a senior at Redwood High School. And the reason I joined Beyond Differences is because I want to create more inclusive spaces for Latinx youth. And I also want to help the children of single parent homes, like the one I came from. And yeah, the pandemic hit the low income community like mine really hard. And I just really want to find ways in which we can heal from the trauma in a culturally appropriate way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Juan. And Maliyah?
Yes. Hi, my name is Maliyah Miller. I'm a sophomore at Jefferson High School in Portland, Oregon. And I joined Beyond Differences because I wanted to be a part of something that was bigger than myself. In middle school, I had friends here and there that I grew up with, but I wasn't really super connected to them like they were with, each other. And so I heard about all the change that Beyond Differences was making and how they were including kids through their events like No One It's Alone Day, and going into schools and sharing their stories and spreading social isolation awareness and just everywhere that they went. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of that too.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Maliyah. And Matteo?
Hi everyone, my name is Matteo Diaz and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a junior at San Rafael High School in San Rafael, California. I joined the Beyond Differences Teen Board because in middle school I had my own first-hand experiences with social isolation. Especially as a queer and trans young person, I really felt alienated from the people around me, and I struggled to find a place where I felt like I fit in. When I heard about Beyond Differences and what they do, I immediately knew it was something I wanted to be a part of. Being able to do the work to build inclusive communities and create a world where everyone feels accepted and welcomed has been so empowering and such a positive experience, and it's one that I'm so grateful for.
Well, thank you, Matteo. And one thing I want to point out before we jump into our questions is something very powerful in your story, Matteo, and and also an element in Juan and Maliyah's as well, is that sometimes it's experience of hardship that turns us toward helping other people. I suspect that many people who are involved in Beyond Differences may have had a time in their life where they felt different or marginalized or alone or cast out in some way. But what each of you are doing is so powerful because you're taking that pain that you experienced and you're turning it into a passion for helping other people so that they don't experience that same pain. And that's what's truly commendable. And I admire you so much, as well as all of the other students out there who are helping to create more inclusive communities, helping more kids feel like they're not left out, and doing that through Beyond Differences. So I really appreciate having you all here today and the opportunity to learn from you. Juan, I want to start with you. When you think about the pandemic, and obviously it's changed all of our lives, but what's one way in which it's changed your life at school?
So I would have to say that one way it changed my life at school is the fact that during distance learning, we got into the habit of, turning off our cameras and muting ourselves during Zoom. And this does not allow many of us to really socialize with each other. And so this really started to affect the way I tend to socialize. I love to meet new people. I love to always invite everyone who feels alone. I celebrate everyone for who they are. But the pandemic and distance learning, it really impacted the way I could do that. And even when I returned to school, I remember walking into my first period class and seeing the sea of faces, and they all looked at me confused. Like it's as if they never even they didn't even know who I was. They didn't even know my name. But I felt very similar in that sense because I looked at everyone and I couldn't recognize one face.
Gosh, that's really powerful, Juan. And it reminds us, right, that coming back to school, this is a transition for everyone, right? This is, it's not like we were going to school one day and then we're coming to school the next day. A lot of us had not seen each other for a long time. And this is a big deal. It's a big transition, and it might feel strange for a little while as everyone adjusts. Maliyah, how about for you? How has school been different?
Yeah, with COVID coming, like it definitely kind of crushed my spirit a little bit. I was super excited, to be a freshman at the school that I've been dying to go to since I was in fifth grade. And it was taken away from me, it was robbed from me and many other freshmen. And being online was very isolating. Like Juan said, everyone had their camera off except for me and the teacher. And then just being in the classroom, it was just hard to not socialize with people. And then a lot of the social cues were gone, for example, walking to school, being lost and bumping into somebody who's willing to help you and be your buddy for the day. I didn't have that last year. And so being in person again has definitely decreased some of that isolation. But there's still that sense of not a full connection with everyone.
I can understand that. And Matteo, how about for you? How has the school year been different?
Yeah, I feel like one of the really big things that I'm noticing is during the pandemic, for a lot of us, myself included, our social circles really shrunk, and most of us were really only staying in contact, with our close friends or people we had established relationships with. And then going back to in-person learning, I kind of expected, the social circles to open back up again and people to, remake acquaintances and connections and friendships. And I haven't seen that happening as much. And I feel that a lot of clickiness has kind of carried over in the sense that people are kind of staying with those groups that their small groups they formed during COVID. And I really think it's important that we start looking at how can we, start opening back up and forming that community and start, practicing again, reaching out to everyone and building those connections because they're so important. But that being said, I feel like during the pandemic, it was so hard because there were so many different struggles we were all dealing with. And oftentimes it felt like we were dealing with them alone. Um, we didn't have people to talk to about it, or we couldn't see people, that could support us. But being back in person, there's still so many struggles, and COVID has hit our communities so hard. But now I see that I'm in school every day, and I can see my peers and the students next to me going through some of the same struggles or very similar struggles. And just knowing that I'm not alone and I'm not the only one having a hard time can be so empowering. And I think it's going to be a really powerful first step in recreating that community.
Well, that's really powerful, Matteo, especially that part at the end about knowing that you're not alone, right? It's amazing as human beings, we can deal with a lot of hardship and struggle if we know we're not alone, right? If we have the support of other people. And sometimes we have to remind one another, though, that we're not alone. Because you mentioned, Matteo, about the clicks, I think is really important, right? And that when you said that word, click, that brought back memories for me of middle school where there were lots of cliques, right? And it was sometimes hard to fit into one of them. And so a lot of times people can feel left out. I'm curious, Matteo, as you think about sort of where we are right now and being back at school and everything that's happened right now, we talk often about our connection to other people, but there's also a connection to ourselves that we have to build, right? When we're truly connected to ourselves, that's when we feel that we know ourselves, when we appreciate ourselves, when we love ourselves, and when we feel confident in being ourselves, right? That's why we often say that, as I've shared with our team, some of the most important things that we have to do in life are three things, as I think of them. One is to know ourselves, to be ourselves, and to love ourselves. And those are the three incredibly difficult things to do, right? But tell us a little bit about how this pandemic, this moment, how have they affected your connection to yourself?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the pandemic was a huge moment of personal growth, and that's because it's the moment when I came out as trans just a few months ago before returning to in-person school. And that's a personal journey that I don't think I really could have gone on without having, the opportunity of being distanced and being, kind of alone or, in my own home. Because kind of for the first time ever, I was away from other people and away from the expectations of society, and I no longer had to perform gender for other people. And it really gave me the opportunity to reflect on myself and ask, who am I? How do I want to express myself? Not how do other people want me to express myself? And that was really huge. And because of that, I think I was able to come out, and I'm not sure I would have been able to have, that positive journey and something that's been such a positive thing in my life recently if I hadn't had that moment for, self-reflection and just personal space and growth.
That is so powerful, Matteo. Wow. Well, good for you. I'm glad you found the courage and the place to have that moment and it sounds like you're in a much better place than you were a few months ago. And that's excellent. Maliyah, how about for you? How has this moment impacted your connection to yourself?
It's definitely helped me grow as a person and like learn that, like I love to step outside my comfort zone. Over the summer, I got involved with some like great projects and programs like Empower Her and even an outdoor leadership program. And then I've like definitely tapped into like, the deeper parts of myself. Like I, am a like very calm, like chill person. And I was able like to tap into like my inner chill over the quarantine time. And then I'm an artist. I'm a painter and drawer, and I've created some like positive like social and community focused pieces that have really made an impact in my community. And I'm it's really helped me grow into a more experienced and more like mature young Black African American woman.
Well, it sounds, Maliyah, like you found some pretty powerful silver linings in this pandemic.
Yeah.
That's really pretty amazing. How about for you, Juan? How has the pandemic impacted your connection with yourself?
So during the pandemic, me, my mom, and my brother were all, for the most part, at home. And for the first time in our lives, it felt like we were against the ropes. My brother, who has special needs, really struggled with distance learning. I saw my mother, who lost her job, just struggling to find a family to work for. And here also, I struggled because I just lost social connections with like other people. I felt like the world was just falling apart because school just became much more difficult because it's not the same thing as learning remotely than in person. And so as a matter of fact, as the pandemic progressed, I saw that my brother went from struggling to trying to overcome his struggle. He asked me to tutor him. He sought my mother out for mentorship. And the same thing with my mother. My mother, in a way, I tried to support her as much as possible because this was a very tough time financially for us. And so my mother would like sometimes, express her true feelings with me, like she's like really like very like just stressed during the pandemic. She couldn't find a job. And all of this really allowed me to see that my own family just doesn't give up. They always keep their eyes on the prize. They always push forward even through the worst of times. And as I progressed through this pandemic, I felt more pride in my sense of self. I felt proud to be the Latinx student I am today.
That's incredible, Juan. And you and I have talked before, and I know just how challenging this past year and a half has been for you and for your family. But I'll say to you what I think applies to Maliyah and Matteo as well, which is I certainly hope and believe that your families are likely very proud of the reflections that you've had, the growth that you've achieved, and the people that you've become through an incredibly difficult 18 months. So, kudos to the three of you. I'm also wondering, people often, and this is true even before the pandemic, wonder like how the experience of social media impacts young people and their health, their well-being, their sense of self, but also their connection to other people. And I'm curious if you could share one, like if your reflections on that, and have your thoughts on the sort of the role of social media or the impact that it has changed during the time of this pandemic?
So yeah, throughout the pandemic, social media was a very big thing. It played a major role in the way we actually, I guess, we lived our lives, because most of the time we spent our time on social media throughout the pandemic because there wasn't really much to do. And as a matter of fact, I felt that social media was a very powerful thing, but it also could be a place for negativity. In regards to like the positivity, you get to see a lot of people, supporting one another. I followed someone who posted daily inspiring quotes, and it really just helped me reflect to really push through the day during the pandemic. But at the same time, there was also like negativity, like there's constantly just like cyberbullying. But those things tend to be associated with just social media in general. But overall, I feel like that the pandemic did really emphasize the role that social media has on our society.
That's helpful. Maliyah, what do you think?
I 100% agree. The media definitely did, kind of impact a lot of people. And there is negativity on there, and it's important to recognize that and identify it. But it's also a place for positivity and connecting. Like I know for me, I've actually made friends through social media. Like they've followed me and reached out to me, and it's helped with school, because now when I went back recently, like I was like, oh, like you're like so and so, and then we have like that just first common interest with which helped me be more connected to my peers and my students, or the people I go to school with.
Yeah. And Maliyah, if I can ask you a little bit more on that, recognizing exactly what you and Juan said, that there's some things that can be negative and maybe can make you feel bad, and there's other things that can be really positive, like finding friends as you did. How do you balance the two? How do you make sure you're maximizing the positive while minimizing the negative impact that social media has on you?
Yeah. For me, like I just don't even go near it. Like I follow like people that I follow and that I'm around. They're people who are like making positive impacts and through like their jobs, and like they're people who want to inspire change and positivity through their work. And then with like the negativity, like if I see it, I'm just like I just don't even look at it. Just keep it out of sight, out of mind. Like that's how I am able to balance the two.
Wonderful. And Matteo, how about for you? How do you manage to maximize the positive impact of social media, but minimize the negative impact it might have on you?
Yeah, I have to agree with Maliyah, just focusing on the things about social media that make me happy and that are going to be positive for me. So only interacting with, people who are trying to add something and are trying to be respectful and kind. And I think to a certain degree, taking advantage of the block button. And, if someone is trying to spread hate or be harmful or, hurt you, you don't need to engage with that person. And just kind of stepping away from the things, that are going to be negative and harmful. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'm curious as we think about, as we think about wrapping up this portion of our conversation, I really want to ask each of you about how you found strength and hope during these past 18 months, and what you turn to now for strength and hope. Obviously, the three of you, so many others who are listening in today, have been through some pretty tough times, right? Some people have lost people in their lives due to this pandemic. Others have lost jobs. Others have seen their lives turned upside down in other ways, have not been able to see family and friends. Some kids have struggled with virtual learning, and not everyone's had an easy time with that. So there's been tough times, hardship for everyone. Where do you turn for hope, for healing, and for happiness during difficult moments like this? Maliyah, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah. I think I've turned to my family, just for hope. Like they we're very hardworking people. And so just being around them has definitely just been like, hey, we're all gonna get this together, just keep going. And so I still go to them now, and then also my friends too, that are very inspiring and helpful. So that's been my beacon of hope and, happiness.
Wow. I imagine your family would be so happy to hear that and proud as well. Juan, what about you?
Yeah, so something that someone I really turned to for guidance and to really just remind me of how it was powerful and how we, I guess, just pushed through the bad aspects of the pandemic would have to be my mother. My mother played a vital role in the life under the pandemic. She, like I said before, she was thrown against the ropes. She has never been in such situations that really determined whether we were going to be able to put food on the table that same day. And so just watching her push through everything she did, she went, I'd say, if I can recall the number, I honestly lost count of how many interviews she went to each day in order to get a job during the pandemic. And luckily, I was able to translate almost all of them. I translated all of them for my mother. And in a way, it helped me to, I guess, bond with my mother a lot more than I actually thought I could. And in that way, when I was struggling, she was also there to support me. She would always tell me, you got to keep going. You got to keep pushing because you can't fall down now. You always got to keep your eyes on the prize. And in that way, my mother's always a constant reminder of how there is always hope. There is always hope. Even in the worst of times, there is hope.
Wow, what a very powerful one. And your mother sounds like an amazing human being. And what an incredible role model you have in your life. Matteo,
Yeah.
how about you?
I have to agree with both Juan and Maliyah that family has been so important. And I think also for me, especially my teachers. Both of my parents are teachers, so when, COVID hit and we started doing online learning, I saw the challenges they were having with, managing an online class for the first time and trying to bring the same levels of engagement and teaching in a whole new platform and all of the difficulties that came with that. So then showing up to my own classes every day and seeing my teachers, working hard and showing up and doing their best to, keep school happening in such an unprecedented time, gave me so much hope. And, I feel so supported having, these adults who are showing up every day for me and who are, working so hard and care so much. And I think teachers do so much work for us. And I'm so grateful to have them.
Well, I was thinking today, Matteo, when I dropped my two children off to school, about the teachers who met them outside and then walked them to their class. They're small. They're 5 and 3.5. But I was reminded of exactly what you said about teachers at the end, that our teachers have endured so much over the last 18 months. Many of them didn't know how to do virtual teaching, right? That's not something they were necessarily taught to do, but they had to figure it out. They had to figure out how to bring us back to school safely, how to manage COVID protocols and procedures and masks and testing and a whole bevy of other things that I'm sure they were never trained for when they decided to become a teacher. And they had to do all that while still making sure that all of us learn, right? That we're taken care of, not just get information into our heads, but that we're cared for, and recognize this is going to be hard for all of us. Teachers are extraordinary human beings, and one of my hopes is that as a country, that we will have much more appreciation for our teachers all over high school, middle school, elementary school, who have put themselves on the line to take care of us. Now, I'll just say in closing, as we transition to our Q&A here with the audience, one of the things that each of you remind me of so powerfully, like in your stories, is just how important our relationships are in our lives. That we were not, as people, meant to get through life alone, right? Thousands of years ago, when we were all hunters and gatherers, searching for our food, across the plains. The people who said, I can do it all on my own, those people died. They didn't make it. They starved to death or they got eaten by a predator, right? The people who made it were those who said, we're actually better when we're together. We're stronger when we're together. And when we look out for one another, then we can live longer, be healthier, and go farther. And that is still true today, thousands of years later, that we are truly better off when we are together. And Beyond Differences obviously recognizes that and is built on that principle that we can be a source of healing and strength for one another. But it's a lesson that's even more important now than it was before the pandemic because of how much everyone has gone through. And so, as we close out this section, just one couple of lessons I'm drawing from what you said that I want to reflect back to everyone who's joining today is one, that it's okay to struggle. It's okay to ask for help. All of us will experience difficulties and moments where we are sad or angry, or where we feel depressed or anxious. That will happen to all of us at various points in our life. It doesn't mean that we're weak or that we're broken. It means that we're human beings having a human experience. The second thing that you are reminding me of is that we have to be kind to ourselves in the process. That there's this a school of thought that if we're really tough on ourselves and beat ourselves up, that somehow that'll make us a better person. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't push ourselves, that we shouldn't strive to achieve our dreams, that we shouldn't aim really high. But beating ourselves up, thinking that somehow that's going to make us better, that tends not to work out so well. And so being kind to ourselves is important. And the last lesson that you remind me of is how important it is for us to take care of each other, right? There are going to be times in our life where we struggle and we're going to forget or not have the strength to ask for help. And in those moments, what we need is someone like Darren Daniluk, the boy in 4th grade who helped me out, who didn't wait for me to ask if I could sit next to him in the cafeteria, but who walked over to me, who reached out, who said, "Hi, I'm Darren. Do you want to sit with me?" Sometimes we have to step up and take care of each other, not just in school, but in life in general, with our family members, with our friends outside of school. And as we do that for other people, they too will do it for us. And that's how we'll get better. That's how we'll heal. That's how we'll find strength during those moments that all of us will experience when we feel sad or anxious or worried. And so I just want to thank the three of you for reminding me of these powerful and important lessons, for sharing that with the rest of the folks who are joining today. Sharing is not easy, right? It requires being real. And being real is about being vulnerable. It's about being honest. But being honest about our struggles sometimes makes us feel like we're exposing ourselves in ways that allow other people to maybe judge us, or maybe they'll think badly of us. But that's why I always think that vulnerability and sharing is a sign of courage. It's a sign of strength. And that's what the three of you have demonstrated today. So thank you for inspiring us. And I know we've got a few minutes here, just to do some Q&A with the audience. So Matteo, I'm going to turn it over to you just to moderate some of that for us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murthy, and thank you for your incredible insight in our conversation. We have some students from across the country today who are going to be here to ask you questions, and I personally am so excited to hear what they have to say. Our first students are from Stout Middle School in Dearborn, Michigan. And they should be joining us any second now.
Here we go.
Hello, so great to have you here with us. Could you please introduce yourselves with your names and grade levels?
Hello, Dr. Murthy. My name is Zara Barrow. I'm in 8th grade.
And I'm Mozip, and I'm in 8th grade also. Dr. Murthy, can you tell us what the Surgeon General does?
Well, it's a great question. So the Surgeon General has two responsibilities. One is to make sure that people around the country have information about health that they can use to make good decisions for themselves. The Surgeon General's job, in another way to put it, is my job is to help people stay healthy and stay well. And that includes not just physical health, but mental health and well-being, which is just as important as our physical health. There's one other job the Surgeon General has that a lot of people don't know about, and that is to run something called the Public Health Service, Commission Corps. Many people have heard of the Army and the Navy and the Air Force. We have another uniformed service in our country that is focused entirely on health, and that is the Public Health Service. That's one of the reasons actually that the Surgeon General wears a uniform, as I'm wearing right now. And the 6,000 officers that we have in the Public Health Service, they go all around the country when we have crises, when a hurricane hits and people need help. During COVID, when people needed help with testing, with treatment in hospitals, we sent our officers all over the country to help and support. So those are the jobs of the Surgeon General. I feel incredibly privileged to have the opportunity to serve in this role. And I'll lastly say that, my family came here not that long ago, right? We came when I was 3 years old. My parents were originally from India. And as immigrants, we didn't have money. We didn't know a lot of people here. But my parents came because they were fueled by this dream that they had of America and what it could be for them and for their kids. They thought this would be a place where their kids would have opportunity and education. And they were excited about that. They were hopeful. And my grandfather was a poor farmer in India. And I will tell you that, when the day that I was asked to serve and sworn in as Surgeon General, I was just struck by the fact that there are few places in the world where the grandson of a poor farmer from half a world away could be asked by the president to look out for the health of an entire country. That's really the power of what America can be at her best. It's why we must always fight to make sure that we create opportunities and open up opportunities for people all across our country, regardless of when they came here or what they look like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Our next student is from the Theater Arts Production Company School in the Bronx, New York City Department of Education.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Grade level?
Oh. Hello, is it Ryan? Hello, my name is Ryan. Hello, is it Ryan? My name is Ryan. Surgeon General Murthy, what would you tell a middle schooler who started to get used to being alone and is having challenges reconnecting with their classmates?
Well, it's a really good question. Thanks for asking, because I think a lot of people might be in that position. They just spent the last year largely learning online. And now all of a sudden they're back in school with lots of people with in-person classes. And it can feel a bit jarring. So the first thing I would say is that it's okay if you need some time to adjust. Everyone is adjusting. This is a new circumstance. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself time. And recognize that even if it looks like other people are happy and fitting right in, the chances are underneath, they're probably trying to figure this out too. So give yourself that time, be gentle with yourself. And over time, you will adjust to this new reality. It will start to become more familiar, but it's going to take all of us a little bit of time to get used to this new normal.
Thank you. Our last student is from Alice Deal Middle School in Washington, D.C. Hello, we're so excited to have you here. Could you please introduce yourself with your name and grade level? I'm not sure that we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Logan Coleman and I'm a 7th grader.
Great to meet you. Would you like to ask your question for the Surgeon General?
Surgeon General Murthy, has there ever been a time in middle school where you felt like you just didn't fit in?
Wow. Well, thank you for that question. Many times. In fact, I spent much of middle school feeling like I didn't fit in. And it was complicated. It was partly because I was really shy and had a hard time making friends. It was partly because, I unfortunately experienced some bullying when I was in 7th grade, and that went on for a while, and that sort of chipped away at my self-esteem and my sense of self. So it was hard. Yeah, there were times where it was a real struggle. One thing that helped me actually is my sister was in the same grade as I was. And so she was always, she was like my best friend and my home base. And I was knowing, even though we weren't in the same class, like physical classroom, just knowing that she was not that far away, like helped me out. And over time, I was able to build friendships, but it was really tough. It was really tough. What helped me in the end were my family. They were really a source of support. They reminded me that it's okay. I can give myself some time, that I don't have to judge myself for being alone. And over time, my teachers really helped me too. They recognized that I was struggling a little bit, and they looked out for me. They supported me. And over time, by the time I finished middle school, I felt pretty good. I actually had some friends that I felt very close to. I felt like my self-esteem was building up, but it took time. And it reminded me that all of us go through different journeys here in terms of how long it takes for us to get comfortable, how long it takes for us to make friends, how long it takes us to just get comfortable with ourselves and learning about ourselves, which, we're all developing and evolving, and it can take time to figure all that out. So that's why I think what I wish I knew back then was the importance of being patient with myself. I just can't emphasize that enough, because we've all gone through a lot, right? We have to be gentle with ourselves. We also got to be gentle with other people, because we all process difficulty and stress differently, right? Some people, when they go through a hardship, they get really quiet. They don't interact with other people. Other people get really sad. Some people get really angry, actually, when they go through hard times, and they lash out at other people. And just think about it. If you encounter somebody in school who's really angry, you don't always know why, right? Maybe it's something that happened that day, but maybe it's something like a result of the struggles that they've been going through for the last 18 months. So it's just important as it is for us to be kind to ourselves. It's important for us to try to be kind to other people, give them the benefit of the doubt, recognize we don't know what's going on in their lives. And sometimes the simple act of reaching out to them, asking them how they're doing, ask them if they want to sit next to us at lunch or hang out with us after school. That can sometimes be, it might seem like a small thing on your part. It can be huge to someone else who might be going through a tough time or struggling. It tells them, hey, I see you, you matter. And that can change everything for someone. So thanks for your question.
Thank you so much to all of our students for sharing such amazing questions, and thank you, Dr. Murthy, for sharing your wisdom with us here today. I'm going to pass it back over to Laura Talmas to wrap us up.
Matteo, that was the beautiful wrap up. All of you have just brought such inspiration and such hope and such powerful words and sentiments and vulnerability and honesty to each other and to all of us, that we can learn from one another and stay connected in ways that we never even thought possible. So thank you all for going so deep and being so brilliant and asking questions and answering them. I just want to thank Dr. Murthy for carving out an entire morning to spend with all of the children in DC and those of us online. Your leadership is inspiring. Your incredible efforts to shine a light on the mental health and the necessary well-being of children is so deeply appreciated by those of us in the movement to care about our children's needs. There are so many issues to tackle, and yet you managed to set aside time to make this one of your spotlights. So thank you. And for everyone here, educators alike, if you haven't downloaded Beyond Differences material, I hope you will go to beyonddifferences.org and sign up. You will get in the family system of hearing about new releases of lesson plans for teachers and student leadership units and celebratory national holidays and all kinds of great ways that we stay connected as a family with you. So everyone, thanks again for joining us. Happy National Know Your Classmates Day. And thanks to all of the staff and volunteers at Beyond Differences and the Surgeon General's office for such an amazing morning. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Dr. Murthy.